Welcome to Breaking News to Trading Moves.
Today, we're looking at a piece of clinical data that really got the market moving, specifically in oncology and, the advanced cell therapy space.
Right. And it's a great example of how one single result can make people quickly rethink valuations across a whole bunch of companies.
Exactly.
So for you, our goal here is to get into the details of this data and then map out who the market viewed as, well, the immediate winners and losers. We're sticking to the headlines and the sentiment that followed.
Okay, so the catalyst is from a company called Galapagos. That's ticker GLPG. They've just released results from their ATALANTA-1 program.
And that's their CAR-T cell therapy, GLPG 5101.
That's the one. It's for a type of blood cancer called mantle cell lymphoma, or MCL, and it's a really tough one to treat.
Before we go further, tell us a bit about that. How difficult is mantle cell lymphoma? I mean, are we talking about a high bar for new treatments?
Oh, an extremely high bar.
Yeah.
Especially for the patients they studied. These are people who are relapsed or refractory.
So their initial treatments have already failed.
Exactly. This is a very aggressive cancer. And what everyone, clinicians, investors, is looking for are responses that are both deep and, importantly, that last.
Okay, so with that context, let's look at the actual findings. What did Galapagos report that got everyone's attention?
It was really two things. First, the headline efficacy. The data showed very high response rates. And crucially, these were durable remissions. Getting that kind of result in this patient group is what you need to even start talking about a best-in-class therapy.
And the second point, you said there were two.
The second point was all about logistics. They highlighted a rapid 7-day vein-to-vein manufacturing time.
Hold on, 7 days.
7 days.
I thought the standard for these custom CAR-T therapies where you're taking out a patient's cells, engineering them, and putting them back was more like, what, 3 or 4 months?
It is, and that's why this matters so much. Reducing that time to just 1 week is a huge differentiator.
So vein to vein literally means from the moment the blood is drawn to the moment the finished product is ready to be infused back in.
That's it. And cutting that time down has 2 big advantages.
Okay, what are they?
First, clinically, it means the patient doesn't need as much bridging therapy. While they wait for their cells, the cancer's still growing, so doctors have to use other drugs to hold it back.
And those drugs can be pretty toxic.
They can be. So a shorter wait means better outcomes, a better safety profile, and then there's the economic side. A 1-week process versus a 4-week process, well, it just costs less. It makes the whole operation more scalable.
So you've got strong clinical data deep responses in a tough-to-treat cancer, and you pair that with a manufacturing speed that just blows away the current standard.
And that's your catalyst right there. That combination is what suggests there's a new competitor on the block. So now that we have that, let's look at who the market saw as the immediate winners from this news.
Right. Shifting to the upside, it seems like the winners fall into 3 main buckets. The first is pretty straightforward, the direct CAR-T and blood cancer leaders. So that's Galapagos, GLPG, and Bristol Myers Squibb, BMY.
Yeah, for Galapagos, the reason's obvious. The GLPG 5101 data validates their whole approach, gives a direct boost to their stock. For Bristol Myers Squibb, it's more about validating their broader strategy.
Explain that a bit. Why does good news for a CD19 targeted therapy from Galapagos help BMY?
Well, BMY is already a huge player in this exact area with their CAR-T Breyanzi. Breyanzi also targets CD19 and B-cell lymphomas. So when another therapy hits the same target and shows great results, it supports the whole platform. It reinforces BMY's investment case and suggests their revenue projections are solid.
Okay, so it's a bit of a rising tide lifts all boats situation for that specific class of therapy.
Pretty much. Good news for the class is good news for the established leaders.
Makes sense. The second category of winners is a little more strategic. It's the big pharma companies with a lot of cash for deals in oncology. The names that popped up were Gilead, GILD, and Merck, MRK.
And the reason for that comes back to Galapagos itself. They've been very open about the fact that their cell therapy unit could be for sale, or that they're looking for a partner.
So this positive data is like the world's best sales pitch. It just made that asset much more attractive to a potential buyer.
Exactly. It drives the value of the target up.
I have to ask about Merck, though. We know them mostly for their checkpoint inhibitors for immuno-oncology. Why would the market immediately connect them to a complex cell therapy deal? Seems a bit outside their wheelhouse.
It's a good question. Look, both Gilead and Merck have massive oncology businesses.
Right.
Gilead, because they bought Kite Pharma, is already a leader in CAR-T They have the infrastructure. They need to keep filling their pipeline.
Okay, so for Gilead, it's about adding depth.
Right. For Merck, it's about long-term diversification. Their main product is a monster, but they know they need new growth engines for the future. Buying a validated, fast-to-manufacture asset like this would instantly give them a top-tier position in cell therapy.
So it's pipeline depth for Gilead versus strategic diversification for Merck.
Got it.
And the final winner.
The last one is broader. It's the biotech ETFs. Thinking here of the SPDR S&P Biotech ETF, XBI, and the iShares Biotechnology ETF, IBB.
And this is just about general market sentiment, right?
That's all it is. It's the classic risk appetite play. A strong clinical result in a hot area like CAR-T makes traders more willing to take risks across smaller oncology companies in general. That positive feeling spills out from Galapagos into the broader ETFs like XBI and IBB.
Okay, so that covers the upside pretty well. Now let's flip the coin. In the zero-sum world of biotech, if there are winners, there have to be losers. Who's feeling the pressure after this announcement?
Right. The downside pressure also falls into about three categories. First up are the companies heavily invested in the older chronic treatment model for MCL. That points to AbbVie, ticker ABBV, and Johnson & Johnson J&J.
Because the current standard of care leans so heavily on their drugs, like Imbruvica.
Correct. And those are chronic BTK inhibitors. Patients take them every day, sometimes for years. That creates a very predictable annuity-like revenue stream.
But the threat here is that CAR-T is seen as one and done.
Exactly. You have a one-time treatment that offers a deep, durable response. If that becomes the go-to option for relapsed patients, it could really limit the long-term growth for those chronic BTK drugs in later lines of therapy.
The total market for long-term daily use just gets smaller.
It's a very real strategic threat down the road.
And that leads us to the second group feeling the heat, the smaller, high-cost cell and gene therapy platforms, names like Bluebird Bio, BLUE, and Fate Therapeutics, FATE.
Yeah, and this might seem a little odd at first glance. Why would good CAR-T data hurt other cell therapy companies?
That's what I was thinking. If the science works, shouldn't that help everyone in the space?
It should help validate the science, yes, but not the business model. Think about it. The company with the great data, Galapagos, is already signaling they need a partner or a buyer for their cell therapy unit. That tells investors just how brutally expensive and difficult it is to run one of these businesses on your own, even if your science is a home run.
So it's not about the drug's efficacy, it's about the commercial reality, the sheer scale you need.
Precisely. It takes billions of dollars in capital to build the manufacturing plants, manage the logistics, get through global regulations. If Galapagos, with proven success, says they need help, it makes investors very skeptical of smaller platforms like Bluebird or Fate, who are already dealing with their own funding and commercial challenges.
It makes the market ask if they can even afford to get their products to market alone.
That's the question. Clinical success doesn't guarantee commercial success.
A critical point. So who is in that third and final category of companies facing some pressure?
That would be rival lymphoma players who just don't have much exposure to this kind of advanced cell therapy. Here we're talking about companies like AstraZeneca, AZN.
And their vulnerability is just that they're still relying on more traditional drugs.
That's the core risk. As these powerful CAR-T options get more recognition in MCL and other lymphomas, companies that are mostly using small molecules or antibodies, they face the risk of losing market share, especially in those high-risk relapsed patient groups. It just weighs on the outlook for any hematology company that hasn't built or bought a solid cell therapy strategy.
Okay, so let's try to tie this all together. The market's reaction to the Galapagos news seems to be driven by this one treatment, GLPG 5101, which is both powerful and fast to produce, and that puts pressure on two different fronts at once. First, it challenges the established chronic drugs like the BTK inhibitors, which could limit their future revenue.
Right.
And second, it raises tough questions about the economic viability of smaller cell therapy players who may not have the resources to compete at scale.
And that speed, that 7-day turnaround, is what really turns this into a market-moving event. Which leaves us with a final thought for you to consider.
Go on.
We've always looked at CAR-T success through the lens of efficacy and safety. But how might this achievement in rapid manufacturing change the playbook? Moving forward, will investors and doctors start treating speed of delivery logistics as a metric that's just as important as the clinical response rate itself?
That is a great question. If the operational side of things starts to dictate who wins and who loses, the entire industry could be in for a major realignment.
Before we close, we have to state clearly that this discussion is based purely on the analysis and opinion of the author of the source material. This is not financial advice. It is not a recommendation to buy or sell any security. You should always perform your own research.